Okay, so today is Tuesday, November 12th, and I'm going to be backtesting the cumulative delta indicator that's made by Zyerman from the Zyerman Group. I'm going to be testing it on NQ futures from 7 a.m. Central Time until 3 p.m. Central Time, which is the entirety of the New York session. For all of my entries and exits, I'm going to be using the concepts that I wrote in the Cumulative Delta playbook. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. All the details for all entries and exits are listed in the playbook, so download the playbook. Okay, so let's get started. So I already have the chart set to the 7 o'clock a.m. candle this morning. And for my main chart here, I'm on the 1 minute chart. On the upper right, I have the hourly cumulative delta. In the middle, I have the 15. And on the bottom right, I have the 5 minute. Now, for the purposes of this backtest, I'm only going to be looking at signals on the 1 minute. I'm going to be ignoring those higher time frames. And that's primarily because the higher time frames can complicate things a little bit if you're new to this. In reality, I would be using those to try to capture bigger moves, but I'm just going to be focusing on the signals from the 1 minute. So we can go ahead and ignore those three on the right. So I'm going to start stepping through the candles. And so far, it looks like the delta is in the upper half, so that's fairly bullish. The delta did cross underneath the confirmation line, so that's more of a neutral slash bearish area. However, the signal is in the lower power zone, so if we get a tick up down there with a tapering delta, I'm going to try a long there. Okay, so we're ticking up from the bottom power zone, and the delta is tapering. This candle is smaller than that one. So I'm going to go ahead and enter a long here. Now we barely touch that upper power zone, but this has a fairly strong slope to the delta candles right here. It is tapering, but I'd like to see it up there in that power zone a little bit more, so I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to pretend I move my stop to break even. Okay, we are getting a tick down from the very top of that upper power zone. This delta candle is a little smaller than that one. I know it's kind of hard to see. It is tapering a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take profit right here. And I'm going to flip short. The delta is tapering into a fine pencil point. It's actually starting to turn negative right there. We are getting a tick down underneath the delta. However, it looks pretty weak for a tick down. So I would like to see this pull up a little bit higher and then tick down. So we'll see where it goes. Okay, we are getting a tick up here. The delta is turning positive again. However, it is alternating from positive, negative to positive. So this is where I add a chop box that indicates that we could start to chop here. So it's good to be aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and move my stop to break even. And my break even stop was hit right here. So I'm going to keep going through these candles. We are ticking down from that upper power zone again. Now, we did come down barely touched the green zone here. We are starting to turn positive again, so it's acting like it doesn't want to come down. So I'm going to go ahead and long this tick up that touched the green power zone. Or I'm sorry, not power zone, but the green zone. This one might be more of a scalp because it was barely on the edge there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take profit here since it closed underneath the delta. Here we are getting a tick down. We do have a negative slope on that delta. But I would like the signal to pull up higher and tick down. That's kind of a weak one, so I'm going to ignore that. Okay, that one is stronger. And notice how the delta, we're getting a thicker delta candle there. So I'm going to go ahead and go short. My stop above that high. Okay, we are getting a tick up from the power zone. So, and the delta is actually tapering right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take profit right there. It's going to almost be a break even, small profit. And since we are tapering, I don't like taking those signals right when it crosses under that confirmation line. I would prefer a higher low, but I'm going to go ahead and give this one a try. I'm going to go long. And I figured we got stopped out there, small loss. Okay, we do have a higher low here. However, the delta has a pretty strong negative slope to it. It's almost to the lower half. So I don't really like that setup. This delta doesn't seem to be tapering either. So I'm going to pass on that. Okay, now we got our second higher low. Delta started to turn positive there. So I would have went long right here. And looks like we got stopped out on that one. I'm going to go ahead and add my chop box to this because we are clearly chopping. Yeah, that's the 8:30 open right there. That's why that's going so crazy. All right, so we have a very strong delta to the upside. However, we're ticking down from the power zone and the delta is tapering. So I'm going to go ahead and short. And I'll move my stop over the high. Oof. And we got stopped out there. Where did this tick up happen? Okay, it was right there. I didn't have a clear exit signal on that, so I stayed in it. Okay. We have a lower high here, and then we have this big engulfing candle. So it's like a second lower high from that power zone. So I'm going to go ahead and short that again. Now I'm using an 80 tick stop here. I could go and put it above the high, but that's more than I want to risk. So I'm going to go ahead and stick to my 80 tick stop. We ended up getting another tick down under the delta. The delta's turning negative, so that's our delta squeeze. Go ahead and bring that into view a little bit better. The delta is looking really strong. It's crossing under the confirmation line. We are ticking up from the bottom, and the delta is tapering, so I'm going to go ahead and take profit. And that's actually a buy signal. So I'm going to go ahead and flip right here. All right, we have lower high in the red zone with the delta tapering. So I'm going to go ahead and take profit right here. Not really liking what I'm seeing though. So I'm not going to short that because the delta has a pretty strong upward slope to it. So I'm just going to take profit and wait. Go ahead and add my chop box to this again because we are chopping again. All this is looking like chop 2. We got more chop right here. Still not seeing a great setup. So we're just sitting out here. Okay, the delta is weak. See, it's tapering right here. We're getting a tick down from the red zone. Delta's under the confirmation line. So we're going to go ahead and short this. Put my stop over the high. And our chop is coming back here. See how it's alternating from positive, negative, positive. Not the best trading conditions. What time is this right here? That's 10:26. Since we are printing a higher low, I'm going to move my stop to break even. And it doesn't look like it hit it there. Okay, that is a break even. And the chop is continuing. Okay, we just printed a lower high. This is pretty much on the red zone. So I'm going to try another short here. Put my stop over this high. Now we have 3 lower highs on the signal. The delta is getting stronger to the downside. Delta is still looking really weak. See, it's gaining momentum to the downside, and we still have that negative slope. So I'm going to hold on to this. Oof. And it shot up and got me. Okay, I keyed through that a little too fast. I would have got out on this engulfing candle right here, where it ticked up from the very bottom of that power zone. So I'm going to take profit right here, and I'm going to flip long because that's a long signal. The delta is crossing back above the confirmation line. That's pretty bullish. Delta's starting to taper now, so I'm going to move my stop to... actually, I should have taken profit on this tick down from the power zone with this tapering like that. So we're going to go ahead and take profit there. We're getting a higher low. The delta is above the confirmation line, so I'm going to go long again. The delta has a negative slope. We have a lower high on the signal, and we're underwater. And so I'm going to go ahead and exit early on that one. Delta's back above the confirmation line. The delta is tapering though. I don't like taking the trades right when it crosses above the confirmation line, so I'll wait for a lower high. There, we got it. There's our lower high. So I'm going to short from here. Delta's getting some momentum back in it. It's getting stronger to the downside. Let's bring this back into view. All right, that's a pretty strong move down, so my exit strategy is going to be a long signal, which would be the signal to come up above the delta, tick down, and then tick back up, with the delta either tapering or going positive. So we'll keep keying through this. Okay. We are getting a tick up. The delta is starting to turn positive there. We do have a positive slope on the delta. It's not much of a positive slope, but it is a positive slope. So I'm going to go ahead and take profit here. And I'm going to flip long. I'm going to put my stop underneath that low. Signal's back in that upper power zone. We are ticking down from the very top. The delta is tapering, so I'm going to take profit. And I am going to take a stab at a short. This delta is maintaining this positive slope. It doesn't look like it wants to roll over. It's ticking up against me. I'm underwater, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the plug right here for a small loss. Almost a break even. We are getting a lower high. However, the delta is ramping up, which is really bullish. So I'm not going to go short there. This is actually an impulsive breakout move. It's ticking up. This delta candle is bigger than this one, which means that there's a lot of buyers stepping in right now. I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at a long here. The delta is really starting to get thin, but it's still climbing. So I'm hoping we get a tick up here. There's our tick up above the delta, so I'm going to stay in. And did that close under? Yep, that closed under, but the delta is actually getting stronger. So we'll see if we get, I'm going to move my stop to break even. And I think it just tagged me there, so that's a break even. There's the tick up I was looking for. But once the signal goes underneath the delta, I'm not interested anymore in a long. I'm actually looking more for shorts up in this area. The delta now is starting to get a negative slope to it. So if it starts to turn negative and we get a tick down underneath, that is our delta squeeze. That is a delta squeeze scenario there. However, I would prefer the signal come up here closer and then tick down. And and this is also a positive candle, so I'm not going to short that. I'm just going to wait. This delta is really thin and spotty. Those types of deltas are really dangerous because the market doesn't know or doesn't have any strong conviction either way. So I'm just going to sit out for now. Actually, we're getting a tick up from the green zone here. This delta looks like it's starting to turn back up, so I'm going to go ahead and long from here. It is more risky though because that delta is very thin. Okay, yeah. So we're ticking down. Let's go ahead and move my stop to break even right here. And we hit it. So that's another break even. We do have the signal ticking down underneath the delta, but the delta does not have a negative slope, so that's not a valid squeeze. So I'm not going to short that. I'm actually going to take another stab at a long here since we ticked up from the green zone. And again, this delta is very thin and spotty. So at this point, I would probably just walk away. What time is it in the afternoon? It's 1:30. Yeah, that's really not a good time to trade, but we're going to take this all the way out till 3 o'clock. And we'll see how we do. All right, we are getting a tick down underneath a thin delta, which is really close to that confirmation line. So I'm going to take profit here. It's not much profit, but it's profit. Again, that delta is, it's very thin, it's negative. We did get a tick down here. So technically that's a delta squeeze setup. I'm going to go ahead and short this. Put my stop at the high. But yeah, these conditions right now are not very favorable. Okay, we're getting a tick up from the lower power zone. So there's just not a lot of follow through and momentum in this price action. So it's still a win, but I'm going to go ahead and flip long here, since we are ticking up from that lower power zone and the delta is tapering. Yeah, it's looking iffy though. And also the delta, now that we're under that confirmation line, any longs here, this is usually a turbulent area, so any longs here, you should probably scalp those. And but ideally you should be looking for shorts. So we are getting a tick down right here, which did go against me, so I'm going to pull the plug at almost a break even, small loss. So I'm really looking for a short here. We're getting a tick down from the red zone, so I'm going to go ahead and short right there. And again, it ticked up against me. We have this very thin, spotty, choppy delta. Again, those are dangerous. You typically want to walk away when you see that. But because we had this big engulfing candle to the downside, I'm not going to exit here. I'm going to give it one more chance and see if we get another tick down. There it is. We got it. There's our lower high. The delta is starting to turn down with a little bit more momentum. And we barely touched the lower power zone. It ticked up and then it did it again right there. So I would pull the plug right here. That is essentially another break even. I'm not going to go long there because that delta is still coming down with a negative slope. So I'm just going to sit this one out. And here we're back to our thin, spotty, choppy delta. Again, that is your walk away signal. So I'm not interested in any of that. That's all chop. What time is it here? 2:42. We're almost done. Still not seeing anything that's very interesting. Here we do have a negative delta where we tick down underneath it. Looks like it's actually gaining some momentum down. So I would probably go short there. It is risky because we were chopping so much. But let's see how this plays out. Okay, we got a little momentum to the downside there, but The delta is starting to taper, so we're losing it. That momentum is going away. Yep, I would pull the plug right here for another small loss. And the reason why I'd pull the plug there is because we closed above the delta and the delta turned positive. And it is 3 o'clock, so that's the whole day. So let's go back and tally up the results.